What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Awesemo UFC Live Before Lock show, as we're here to get you ready for UFC 264, which goes down tonight inside the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, the first UFC fight card in Las Vegas since the beginning of 2020. Of course, as always, I'm joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. We are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Pete, well, we know about 30 minutes ago, we realized where we had to start this show off with, the fact of the news of that Amadovsky has COVID issues in his camp. So his fight against Yazong is off. And I think just like everyone, we're all sitting there going, okay, what changes do I have to make? And I mean, look, on the strategy show, you had talked about, hey, you were looking at the underdog in this spot. And I had talked to some other people who were giving me the same kind of feelings that you were giving me. So, I mean, obviously the easy transition, and I know you had to go through this with the 150 max of, okay, you can just go all to Ryan Hall with whatever you got him in there. Or like myself, what I did was I had to do kind of in terms of in the big GPP, I was like, I made some massive changes in terms of who I had in my lineup. Ultimately transitioning, part of my transition was to go to Nico Price, but man, that's a bummer because he was obviously an underdog we were looking at.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm sitting there gaming, playing Warzone before the stream, and I get the message on my phone. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The one time I taken a real aggressive stance on the first fight of the night from a betting and a 150 max standpoint, of course, the underdog that I'm targeting in 100% of my lineups, I went completely aggressive. You guys know how I am. Now we're left scrambling. So I didn't have enough time before the podcast to go in there and work through, my spreadsheets and all this and that to really get unique with my lineup. So I did a lazy man swap, and the lazy man swap is going to Ryan Hall. And I think that, anything around that Yu Hao Zhang, area is going to be popular. Nico Price, maybe even some people taking some desperation shots at Jerome Rivera because, it's slim pickings down there, especially if you're doing the lazy man swap.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, those fighters that are down there, you're looking at Jerome Rivera, 6,900. You got Ryan Hall, 7,100. Nico Price, 7,300. Chris Moutinho, 6,700. I mean, it's just, there's not a lot that you want to go to down there. When I was doing my office hours chat earlier today, someone was asking about, Ryan Hall. And I mean, look, that fight is very easy to break down. I do think I do have a minor concern of what happens if Poirier cannot get a finish. He keeps the fight on the feet, and the odds are, and we just know this, when you're priced that high, and if it's a stand-up fight, you just got to put on massive amount of volume in a 15-minute fight if there's no knockdowns, because like I said, man, Poirier, even though for whatever reason he's clearly not taking Ryan Hall's ground game seriously. I mean, do not play jiu-jitsu with Ryan Hall. That is not going to end well for you.
Yeah, I think that's a spot where I'm desperately trying to target, and it's more of, like I said, the lazy man swap, but I'm also trying to think of it from an inexperienced standpoint. Yeah, Ilia Topuria is undefeated and he has looked excellent in the UFC. But if you really go back and you check out his career, has he really fought somebody on Ryan Hall's, caliber, or had any real true experience with dealing with adversity? I don't know. And whenever you have undefeated fighters, it's okay to go against them because at some point, they are going to make a mistake. This is MMA, and there's so many different things to worry about, especially when you're facing a leg lock specialist. But standing up, Ilia Topuria has great hands, needs to be aware of those tricky kicks from Ryan Hall and also the tricky entries into leg locks and also back take scrambles. So I'm okay with getting Ryan Hall as my pivot from Yu Hao Zhang. I'm not I think that's not going to be a public decision. I think a lot of people would much rather change their lineups and go to a guy like Nico Price.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the easy situation. Of course, you see there on the left-hand side of the screen, the banner ad for tonight's pay-per-view. And if you are planning to watch tonight's UFC 264, do us a favor and do it through the ESPN Plus ads at awesemo.com. You'll get the fight and a year of ESPN Plus for $89.98, which includes exclusive UFC fight nights and thousands of additional live matches. So just go to awesemo.com and click on those ads and let the people over ESPN Plus know you heard about them over here at awesemo.com. Also, if you are not a member of Awesemo Plus, if you want to get a peek of what's behind the paywall, MMA Fighter Rankings is free premium data and tools right now over awesemo.com. Also, MLB main slate ownership. Maybe you've been thinking about taking that plunge to become an Awesemo Plus member. Gives you a nice peek about what is behind the paywall. Of course, what is behind the paywall is those ownership projections, that top fighter tool, which is great tools to help you develop your line. So I was using those tools earlier today and developing my 20 max lineup. Of course, we're going to get to all the questions. You can line those up in YouTube, line those up in Slack. I know as I was kind of just glancing at the questions, and I know one of the questions will be in relation to Sean O'Malley. And look, I think if you want to help differentiate yourself from the field tonight, maybe looking at going away from Sean O'Malley, even though, look, you're going to be worried about a Sean O'Malley knockdown, first round victory to where he goes out there and maybe he scores 120, 125 points. But Pete, we're always talking about how do you try to differentiate yourself from it, but here's the thing. If you want a 9,000 fighter and if it's not Sean O'Malley, who are you going to?
Yeah. So, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. And anytime there's going to be heavy chalk, a way to get different is avoiding it, right? And looking to go after some fighters that could be going lower owned within the same vicinity of the salary range. You could be looking at a guy like Zhumagulov, Poirier, Pereira, since Imedovsky's out of there. And then you have Jennifer Maia, Max Griffin, and that's kind of 8,700 and up. But for me, I'm rooting for Chris Moutinho, but I do think that the chalk is warranted. I think that Sean O'Malley, based on his style and how he hurts people on the feet, and he has some slick jiu-jitsu that we really haven't seen showcased yet. So, and you look at Chris Moutinho, coming into this, has been knocked out in his losses. Obviously, like I said, I'm rooting for him, but I don't think it's an easy matchup for him at all. And I think Sean O'Malley could be on his way to an early finish.
Yeah, that's just, to me, the 9,000 options, I'll be on outside of O'Malley, I just don't love. Zhumagulov at 9,300, I really don't want to go that. It's a division that we just don't see a ton of stoppages in. You mentioned like going a little underneath 9,000. Brad Tavares at 8,600. I think he's a better FanDuel play than he is over at DraftKings. Now, that could be, if you're looking to make a prop bet, Brad Tavares maybe winning round 3, maybe something to look for, even though he's not known as a finisher. I can see maybe Omar Akhmedov slows down as the fight goes on, and maybe you go there. I did not want anything in Jennifer Maia. I'll tell you, Pete, did some unchecking when I did my 20 max and cruncher. Unchecked Jennifer Maia, unchecked Jessica I, unchecked Irina Aldana, unchecked Yana Kunitskaya.
Ooh, see, I don't know about the Yana Kunitskaya, Irina Aldana, but in a 20 max, it makes sense, right? Like, you have to be selective with, you can't get to everybody in every combination because of the small amount of lineups that you are doing. In a 150, I would definitely suggest getting some exposure to Irina Aldana and Yana Kunitskaya. You have Irina Aldana missing weight, and a lot of people kind of pointing the finger and trying to figure out what's wrong. Did she have a bad weight cut? The nutritionist pulled the plug. I think it could be that. And I think it also could be somewhat strategic. I say it all the time. I don't believe anything anybody says in this game. I know how this game is. And whenever you're facing somebody looking to control you in the clinch, and in addition to that, land some takedowns, more often than not, a lot of fighters will take a chance and try to weigh in heavy so that they can have somewhat of an advantage, or that extra weight can provide some difficulty for their opponent. But I will say that Yana Kunitskaya is going to be one of the most popular underdogs on the slate for sure, given the takedown threat and how Irina Aldana did lose to Holly Holm, was taken down 5 times. When you see Holly Holm, people don't think, wow, she's a takedown specialist, because she's not. She's a strong southpaw boxer and kickboxer, but she's sneaky with her wrestling, and I think that's why she was so successful. So I'm interested for that fight. But yeah, man, for me, it's at the top. It's Sean O'Malley, obviously. And if I'm looking at that Jennifer Maia price range, that Brad Tavares, I would probably go towards the Max Griffin or Michelle Paeta. I think that Max Griffin can really, outproduce his salary with takedowns and efficient striking. And then Michelle Paeta can possibly get a finish over Nico Price. I mean, Nico Price's his chin has been in question at some times.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with with Max Griffin that I do like is when Carlos Condit does get taken down, you don't see a guy that's immediately trying to get up. Like when you watch Conor McGregor get taken down, what you immediately see him doing? He's scooting right to the fence and he's trying to get up. He's not going into guard. And this was something that Gilbert Melendez talked about on ESPN Plus earlier this week, where he's like, whether we're talking about the Dustin Poirier fight, the Khabib fight, this is what Conor does, and you just don't see that out of Carlos Condit. I will tell you this, on the strategy show, I told you sometimes you got to take advantage of those monkey knife fight lines.
Uh-oh.
You might have missed out on Kunitskaya of Aldana. That number's come down a little bit now, 116.5 for Kunitskaya, 85.5 Aldana. I hit that one a little earlier this week. So I got a little better number. That's why I tell you, we're a monkey knife fight. You got to get over there earlier. There's not been a ton of movement over there. I will tell you, when we did the strategy show, we did not have a total strikes line out there for O'Malley and Moutinho. O'Malley 28.5, 14.5 from Moutinho.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
I will tell you, at Monkey, I've made 2 plays over Monkey Knife Fight. The other play that I made was Nico Price, Michelle Pahet. I think that line is wrong too. They have Nico Price at 90.5, Michelle Pahet at 76.5. I'm looking at the main event and I'm looking at the co-main event. I think the co-main event is a prime double less on both of those guys. Stephen Thompson, 95.5. He's a counter striker. Gilbert Burns, 72.5. I think what makes that fight potentially interesting is, and look, Burns has been a pivot to me for GPPs, because if he's going to win, he's going to finish. But Stephen Thompson, I think he's going to win by decision here. But I wonder if it's 2-0 going into the third round, do we see a situation where Gilbert Burns just says, screw it, I'm going for it. I'm not going to play this point karate system, and potentially he gets knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know I like Stephen Thompson, but I do recognize the danger in Gilbert Burns' power and also his ground game. I think that it's pretty similar to Vicente Luque. I think the power is similar to Jeff Neal, and we did see Stephen Thompson look excellent in those fights. And even though Jorge Masvidal fight, but that is some time ago right now. But to back up what you're saying about Burns, he hits so hard that if he does rock you, he could end up putting Wonderboy Thompson in some bad spots on the ground. I don't hate that fight at all from a DFS standpoint. I think it could end up being a sneaky spot because of the damage that Gilbert Burns has taken, in the Usman fight. And, even kind of going back into his career, you're seeing him getting knocked out by Dan Hooker. So I think that a guy like Thompson can definitely pose some problems and end up capitalizing.
Let's start off with a question from Slack from Blackbird. He says, FanDuel Cash 2x2. Option number 1, Michelle Pahet or Trevin Giles. To me, in that situation, I would prefer Michelle Pahet. Number 2, Pahet versus Duplessis. Give me Duplessis. And 3, Topuria or Hardy. In cash, I prefer Topuria just because I feel look, Hardy and Tuivasa to me is the boom bust play of the card. Now, look, I think you have to have big ownership on that fight because I think someone's getting knocked out in that fight. I prefer Tuivasa because I believe we have yet to see Greg Hardy show the ability to check a leg kick. And until he shows that, you can tell me a guy who knows how to leg kick, give me the leg kicker.
Yeah, right. I was telling you before the show, when you have a guy as big as Greg Hardy and a former football player, like imagine if somebody was able to talk to him and say, guess what? I want you to go run across the cage and tackle your opponent since you know that he struggles on the mat. And you're such a big guy that if you were ever to get top position on somebody, that you could really rain down some punches and maybe we can get him out of there quickly because we know that your gas tank is limited, right? Because of your asthma. I think that Greg Hardy is a very dangerous but sneaky play because, it's extremely volatile, extremely boom bust. Can go out there and get flatlined by Tai Tuivasa or end up catching Tuivasa on an exchange when he got a little too wild. As far as like the Greg Hardy or Topuria and Cash, that's not even like close to me. Topuria is so much better than Greg Hardy, and even though that Ryan Hall is a tricky person to fight, I think you just side with the favorite in Topuria in that comparison.
You know, we always like to talk about who's taking that trip to Takedown City, and Jared wants to know who's going to have the most takedowns on this card. I mean, like overall, you look top to bottom. There's not like a fight that you go, okay, that's the massive wrestling advantage. I mean, look, we've mentioned about Max Griffin. Yeah, I think that's someone. I mean, look, Ryan Hall is going to want to get to fight to the ground, but it's not going to be your traditional wrestling takedowns. If Poirier McGregor goes more than 3 rounds, then I would say Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, so Dustin Poirier should do that because he did have success and caught Conor McGregor off guard with that. I will say that Max Griffin probably has the best chances for landing multiple takedowns throughout the fight. Carlos Condit throughout his career has struggled to defend takedowns. The wrestling's basically non-existent. We spoke of how in the WEC he was taken down and controlled for a large majority of his career, but he is active off of his back in a certain way, not towards getting to back to his feet, but he likes to throw elbows off of his back and try to throw up some submission attempts. That was more towards the WEC side of his career than the UFC. I think that if he could go back to those roots, he could end up possibly spoiling the fight for Max Griffin. But a sneaky fight for wrestling that I think might be flying under the radar is the Zhumagulov against Jerome Rivera. I think that as much as we anticipate this flyweight bout to be on the feet, Zalgas has been taken down in the UFC, hasn't shown the best takedown defense despite his wrestling background. And Jerome Rivera is like the biggest liability on the card, and a guy that's taken so much damage on the feet and been knocked out. He might be trying to initiate takedowns right off the rip. So I'm not sure how the wrestling will go and who will have the advantage in that matchup. But I do think that that's a sneaky fight for takedowns.
Of course, if you want to get access to all the great premium tools and data we have over Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for Awesemo Plus Pass. And if you are a new user of Awesemo Plus Platinum, we have got a special for you right now over at Awesemo.com. Take advantage of the promo code MMA Live Before Lock. All caps, one word. That's MMA Live Before Lock for 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And if you're just looking for an Awesemo Plus MMA pass, you can get that for $8.95. Stop guessing. Start waiting. Join Awesemo Plus. I want to mention in relation to ownership, one of the questions over in Slack was, I'm concerned I have too much O'Malley, 74.7%, and Poirier, 69.4%. I would say that's a little high on both of those. I will tell you, when I was doing crunches throughout the week, I was getting a lot of Dustin Poirier. And so I had to limit my exposure a little bit there. I think that, look, you have to roster the main event. You have to roster the main event on DraftKings. The price point, the way that fight's going to go, I picked Conor McGregor on the strategy show on Thursday. This is my concern with Conor McGregor. Is he fighting too emotional? I would tell you this. I love what he did for this camp of going away from his family and making everything about this fight. Because look, if he loses this fight, how much can he, in terms of how much money he makes as a fighter, how does that kind of change things? But you look at Thursday and then you look at yesterday. I just, and this as a fighter, everyone kind of thinks, fighting angry is a great thing. I can't tell you how many fighters have said, no, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say personally, I used to fight angry and think that's how you're supposed to fight, because you go out there and you're supposed to hate your opponent and get out there and try to get him out of there. And I ran into some problems in some of my fights because I did that. Me being a little too over aggressive got me into some bad spots. Yeah, I landed some fast finishes and all that, but I also got put into some bad spots because of my own mistakes. So fighting emotional is the worst thing you can do. You want to be more methodical and calculated as you start to mature throughout the sport. So you still need to have that kill switch whenever you hurt somebody. So it's important to really recognize when you hurt somebody, but you have to be methodical throughout and just be aware of everything. And everything with Conor McGregor, and trust me, I'm a massive Conor McGregor fan. I was down in American Top Team at one time and met and trained alongside Dustin Poirier. Awesome guy. I'm rooting for both of them, but I will say that everything that Conor's doing does seem pretty forced. It does seem like he's kind of like, trying to hype himself up to really like hone and channel that inner old Conor. And, it does seem forced. And the trash talk, he doesn't seem as smooth. And I know that's silly to even be mentioning trash talk, but it's just the antics. And I can tell when a fighter's rattled. And maybe for the first time in Conor's career, maybe he's starting to feel that pressure. And, he has so much to lose and so much riding on this fight that almost, if this was boxing and it went to the scorecards, you would probably guarantee that Conor would be walking away victorious because he has so much to lose and so much to bank on this. But this is MMA, man, and I think a guy like Dustin Poirier could definitely pose some problems for him. I like Poirier. I like having most of my lineups with Poirier, and to kind of circle back on the ownership, I think that 70% for O'Malley might even be a little too low, if we're being honest.
This is my thing about Conor, because there's just so many unknowns with Conor heading into this one. Is, if you look back at the rematch back in January, it was a very boxing center stance.
Yes.
That is not what you have seen. And look, I truly believe that was about had been working so much to prepare for a Manny Pacquiao fight. So he was using the Dustin fight as a way to get some ring time in there. So to me, do you see that bouncing in and out style that we've seen out of Conor? The other thing I'm looking for, how quick does he throw a leg kick? That's something we did not see in the rematch. It has been a big part of Conor's game throughout his time, and the other question I have about Conor is, we really haven't seen that power translate outside of the Eddie Alvarez fight from 45 to 55. But look, the question is, I was telling Pete right before the show, the biggest Conor McGregor fan will be in attendance. And no, it's not Dana White. No, it's not Ari Emanuel. No, it's not Audi Attar, his manager. The biggest Conor McGregor fan tonight, besides the media, because Conor makes us media guys a lot of money, is Charles Oliveira, because he realizes it's about to become red panty night if Conor McGregor wins tonight.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to fight against Conor McGregor, and I think that the more that he's in the sport and fighting and being active, I think that it's beneficial for the sport, right? Like, everybody wants to tune in for a Conor McGregor fight. I think he takes the sport to new standards. The best case scenario, in my opinion, is if this went 5 rounds and was a draw. Like, you know what I mean? That's not going to happen. I don't foresee this going 5 rounds.
All right, it goes to draw. I'm blaming you.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind, but I don't foresee that happening. I really don't. I would love to see them both kind of get the notoriety and, success after this. But I feel like it's more in Dustin Poirier's favor this time around. I think that Conor McGregor could be looking to get back to some kickboxing roots. I don't know if he goes full karate stance, because if he goes full karate stance, I don't know if that's really the way to get it done. I think that he needs to incorporate kicks, though. So more of a kickboxing style. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Dustin Poirier looking to change levels and put him on his back early.
I know there was a question I came in for the show asking about randomness for GPP, saying this came from Ryan, says it's 20 too much. What do you recommend? 20 is fine with me. I do a lot of 20% randomness. You can go 12, 15. I think it just kind of depends on what are you looking for in terms of your lineups, and I think how many times are you going to do lineups. That's thought there. A guy that we really haven't talked much about. We've talked about kind of the other side of this fight. We got a question about Trevin Giles. I feel like it's more of a cash play than it is a GPP play if you want to go Giles.
So Trevin Giles is going to be a very popular underdog because of the price range of both of those guys. Also, the fact that he has more UFC fights than Dricus du Plessis, who in his debut didn't really look the strongest or the best against Marcus Perez, but he started to find his rhythm and ended up catching Marcus Perez with a pretty hard shot and then some follow-up shots to get a nice finish. But the one thing with Dricus du Plessis is that he's a finishing monster. Like, he goes out there and tries to put your lights out with punches or even with submission attacks. So I think that the ownership should be siding with Dricus du Plessis because of Trevin Giles' his questionable cardio and how he gives up his neck when he gets tired. So I think that Dricus du Plessis is the A side. Now, with all that being said, Trevin Giles works behind an excellent jab and has fought some strong competition even outside the UFC. And if you look at Dricus du Plessis on fight tape, he keeps his chin straight up in the air. So when he keeps his chin straight up in the air, you're going to get hit with a shot that you think that you're out of range from. So I don't hate it at all. I kind of like the Trevin Giles underdog pick. I'm still siding with Dricus du Plessis because I feel like he's a little bit more of a special fighter than Trevin Giles.
Deidre says, would like to know Pete's take on Greg Hardy on the scale yesterday. My husband and I thought he did not look good. I personally thought he just kind of looked the same.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about how you bounce up and down from weight, whether you gain a ton of weight and then drop a ton of weight. I mean, these heavyweights, a lot of heavyweights probably could make 205 if they were a little bit more disciplined, hence why they are in the heavyweight division. But I will say that, a guy that's a former football player, he's just naturally a large guy. He's a big guy. So I think that he's probably cutting 30 pounds every fight camp. We also have to think of, we had just faced the COVID era. So we were throughout a pandemic, and you know how that affected everybody's bodies and activity levels.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a big thing made about how much weight that he dropped, to make this matchup. What concerns me about Greg Hardy is he's constantly talking about boxing.
Yeah,
and it once again that's where I go back to the point of he's constantly talking about boxing. Makes me think of how many are his training partners showing him how to check a leg kick.
It's tough to say, right? Because we don't really know what his training is going like. I mean, I don't know if he had a falling out with American Top Team or he just stopped training there, started working with Rashad Evans, kind of like on a one-on-one basis, and then has a few training partners. It's just odd. Tuivasa, I think, is probably around the stronger teammates. So he could definitely patch some holes. But Greg Hardy does have some potential within the division. I mean, he's athletic. But that cardio and that quit in him is always there. And it's pretty evident that when the going gets tough, you can somewhat break Greg Hardy.
Burns or Nico Price? I would, that's a tough one.
That's a good question. I would say, for me personally, I think Nico Price is a safer play than somebody beating Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah.
I mean, I just think that the one thing that Nico Price talked about this week was about being a more defensive fighter, but he also admitted that can quickly change in a fight. And Pete, this, you could go with that mindset of, hey, I'm gonna be a little more defensive. All of a sudden, that guy across the cage, he hit you with a good jab. All of a sudden, you kind of forget about that.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody's got a game plan until they get cracked in the face. And, it's true, right? Until you get punched in the mouth, you think that you're going to do this and that. And, I mean, the last time you were at one of my fights, I went out there and took my opponent down, and that was definitely not a part of the game plan at all. And it's just,
I was like, that dude straight up lied to me last night.
Homeboy gave me underhooks. I'm not going to see you. So,
hold on. We talked about the game plan the night before. Takedown was down. I'm like, this guy. No, it's just how it is, man. Trying to become a wrestler. That's all it is. You trying to become a wrestler.
It's just how it is, man. When you're in there and you're in the fight, you feel like, wow, this guy's weak in this spot, or I should use this because I don't think that he has a defense for that. Or you start to kind of initiate a move and you recognize that your opponent has no clue. So that's why you see kind of, people going from game plan to game plan throughout fights.
Yeah, it's always, look, things happen in a fight. I just remember your coach, Greg Ribello, making a comment to me about one of his fighters where some trash talking started happening in the fight.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, I looked at the other coach and go, well, there went the game plan.
Yeah, right out the window. Exactly. That's how it is.
That'd be interesting is, look, Conor is a guy that Herb Dean will be the referee tonight. When Herb Dean says, let's fight, he's going to bounce straight to the middle of the cage. Mm-hmm. It's one of his thought processes. The mindset is, let me put my opponent on the defense, but I do wonder, maybe if there's some clinching type situations, do we hear a little trash talking?
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, as a fan, we may not be able to hear it because that T-Mobile Arena is sold out. It's going to, it's going to be a pro Conor crowd.
I mean, any crowd really outside of Abu Dhabi is going to be like a pro Conor crowd. And, I think that the crowd could definitely motivate Conor and possibly affect Dustin, but not so much now at this stage of his career. We have a ton of people checking us out right now, Jason. I really appreciate it. I know you do too. 800 people. If we could get to 200 likes, throw your questions in the comments. We'll get right to them.
Mention this. This is a DraftKings GPP question asking us to pick one: Plessis, Giles, or Griffin. I might go Max Griffin just because of the takedown ability.
So it depends on what you're in, right? Like, are you in a GPP? Are you in cash? Are you a safe player? Are you a risky player? I think that the potential for the highest scores lie between Griffin and Duplessis.
There's this comment about saying public will drive Connor up, but I'm not playing against public players. Don't really care what they do. I mean, look, if that was the case, all the money's coming in on Dustin Poirier, folks.
You know, I don't care about that. And I got into an argument last night at work with somebody saying, oh, the late money, like, it matters if people know what the hell they're talking about.
Correct. Yes.
You know what I mean? It doesn't always forecast what's going to happen. We see it all the time. It's a good thing to take into consideration for sure.
Look, I'm just saying, if you're looking to make a prop bet on the main event, the two prop bets that stick out to me is McGregor wins round 1 plus 250, and the other is Poirier wins by submission plus 650. I mean, look, you may get to the main event, and all of a sudden, maybe majority of your DFS lineups are done, and you want to hit one of them props. The Poirier wins by submission to me is a very juicy prop out there.
Yeah, it is. It is, especially with a fighter that landed the takedown in the previous bout and has a strong ground game. I remember when I was training alongside Dustin, he had a new guy coming at him in the grappling and wrestling room, and he was destroying everybody. And I said to myself, I said, damn, I didn't know his ground game was that good. So it's really good.
Yeah. What percentage do you think the main event goes to the decision? I would say
20% of the time.
Yeah. The thing is, and here's the other part of it is I question with Dustin's output and him pushing it of can Connor have the gas tank to go 25 minutes with Dustin?
Yeah. So Connor was able to survive in the Nate Diaz fight and go 25 minutes in the rematch, but I mean, you did see that Connor could have been broken in those later rounds. Early on with those incredible knockdowns, he looked fantastic. But it's almost like the sting comes off of his shot with every minute that passes by, and possibly the confidence, goes away from Conor McGregor as the fight gets longer. Not saying that he has quit in him, but like, when he started getting cracked with those leg kicks and then he threw a combination and got caught with that check hook from Dustin Poirier, and then they basically switched spots. Connor put himself against the cage and shelled up, and then you saw Dustin Poirier just start to unload on him. Mm-hmm. Connor had a different look in his eye, right? You know what I mean? He was hurt, obviously, but there's a way to really get a fighter out of their rhythm, and I think Dustin Poirier is somewhat finding it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the one thing I feel with Connor is I do believe a lot of people are counting him out heading into this one because I mean, look, we're in a sport where we remember the last thing, and there are times in a sport where we have the you must have forgotten moment. I mean, look, this to me, this is, if you told me they fight 10 times, I'd probably pick Dustin 6 out of 10 times.
Yep.
Just because to me, he's the better martial artist. But the fact is that round 1 Connor is no joke.
No joke at all. Possibly one of the best pound for pound fighters out there, right? Like if you could, put round 1 Connor into a bottle and give that, like, that's like such a high level skill set. And it's just an incredible athlete. We've seen what he's done across 2 weight divisions. Don't go away from Conor McGregor. I mean, I'm an aggressive player, so I like to really go bullish on certain players. I'm pretty heavy on Dustin Poirier, but I recognize that Poirier could easily get knocked out in round 1 against a guy who's a little pissed off and was having plenty of success in round 1.
Yeah. Next up, Matt asks, is there a fight on this card that is stackable for cash on DraftKings? The only one you can consider is the main event, but I will say this, if you're going to stack the main event, your mindset has to be this thing's going 25 minutes.
It's got to go over 3 rounds, 100%.
But at the price point, I don't hate the thought process of in cash.
I mean, there's really no reason to stack, in my opinion.
But 13 fights. I mean, because look at, to me, you got to roster the main event. I mean, look, and then I think maybe you look at the Giles to Plessis fight, and then Tuivasa Hardy. I mean, I talked about this earlier this week. To me, my core this week, and someone asked me earlier about single entry, it's one of the fighters in the main event.
Yep.
It's one of the fighters in Tuivasa Hardy, and then it's Sean O'Malley. That's my core.
Yeah. So before the cancellation, what I did is I manipulated my percentages of like what I was comfortable with. I had the main event included in my lineup. Okay. I locked in Sean O'Malley, and I also locked in Hu Yaozhong, but he's no longer on the card. So I did the lazy man swap, and I have a ridiculous amount of Ryan Hall just because I didn't go through and fix all my lineups on Excel.
Yeah. Of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. With Monkey Knife Fight, you are in charge. Head over to monkeyknifefight.com right now. And when you sign up with the promo code also Monkey Knife Fight has an instant first match deposit of up to $100. I will tell you, the two ones that I have already got in on is the total strikes on Nico Price, Michelle Pahea. I went the less on both of them. Nico Price 90.5. I thought that was a pretty easy go less on. Michelle Pahea 76.5. I went less on that. Currently, Giannis Kunitskaya is at 116.5. I got her at 122.5. So go less on that one. Arena Aldana 85.5. I got her at 93.5, which was kind of a number I was going back and forth on. 85.5 makes that kind of interesting. If you're going to play that one right now, I would probably, God, that's 85.5 with Aldana's fighting style. That's kind of tough because if she does keep that range, I think she will go over 85.5.
Yeah.
That one's to pay attention to. But I will tell you right now, the fight that really has my eye is a co-main event, Stephen Thompson, Gilbert Burns. I'm thinking about that. Maybe another double less one there because I think Gilbert Burns will have a hard time finding Stephen Thompson. I think he's going to have to go for it. He's at 72.5. Stephen Thompson, 95.5 is a big number for a counter striker.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And it's also banking on that Gilbert Burns can be durable to withstand 95 strikes. That's a lot, especially when you're just coming off a knockout, getting knocked out. So that's another reason why I like Dustin Poirier too, is because it's pretty, I don't know, it's a quick turnaround for Conor McGregor to get in there and go back in there against a guy who's already defeated you and tested that chin. We talk about it all the time. Once that chin's cracked, it's a lot easier to get rocked going forward.
Someone asked if we thought the first fight is going to be optimal, which is now Zhumagulov and Rivera. I would say no.
Aye.
I mean, 93. If Zalgas wins that fight, 9,300, he's got to get a stoppage. He needs takedowns. He needs a bunch of control time. I don't know about that one. Even though we did see Rivera get knocked out quickly against Ode Osborne.
Yeah, so I think that Zalgas is the better fighter. He's just small. He's 5'4", 125 pounds. Has like a few good wins outside the UFC, but what the heck? This guy lost back-to-back fights to Raulian Paiva, very good fighter. Amir Albazi, pretty good fighter. But I mean, when you beat Ali Bagatinov, Tyson Nam, Artur Bagatinov on the regional scene, you're coming into the UFC like, yeah, I could probably beat the lower and middle range of the division right off the bat. And to be 0-2, and now against the guy who's 0-3 in the UFC and Jerome Rivera, you would imagine that this is a showcase fight, but it's not really much of a showcase if you're winless in the UFC. So I don't know. We're here. I think it's a volatile fight for sure because of the weight class and the fact that Jerome Rivera is pretty damn tall, 5'10", for 125 pounds. Perhaps that he can get takedowns that are a little unorthodox against Zalgas Zhumagulov.
I hustle forward. I appreciate you in the super chat. I saw he got in the Oswald Hall of Fame the other day. He says, how many points are you willing to stray from the optimal lineup on FanDuel? Optimal is 470.62, so 30 points back, 20 points, 10 back. Look, this is my general thought on FanDuel today is when it comes to the MVP spot, everyone's going to be looking at Sean O'Malley, and they're going to be looking at the main event. I think if you want to get different, you got to go somewhere else to try to separate yourself from the field there. The fighters, I will tell you, I think that you have to be looking at over on FanDuel to help, get yourself in that optimal lineup. I look at Brad Tavares. Topuria could be an interesting MVP option because Ryan Hall is going to be wanting to get this thing to the ground.
Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to projections and like how far are you comfortable with going back from the optimal at 470.62, I think something within the 15 range to 10 to 15 range, I think is okay. I mean, the more that you go away from that optimal lineup projection, the more different you're going to be. So it all depends on, do you want to split or do you want to solo? If you want to solo, then, the likelihood is the further back you go, the more difficult you're making it for yourself. But if you hit, you're going to be by your lonesome.
Yeah. Of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to line those up in whether it's our premium Slack channel. Also, you can be doing that right over there on YouTube as well. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in here on a Saturday late afternoon. We are 20 minutes before lock, before UFC 264 is going to kick off. And if you have not purchased the pay-per-view and you plan to purchase it, be sure to head over to awesemo.com. Check out those ESPN Plus ads. Click the links to order tonight's pay-per-view. When you do that, it lets them know you heard about it from awesemo.com, which does help us out here and the team at awesemo.com. Mentioned maybe some questions that we really have not gotten to this point. We haven't talked a lot about Wonder Boy. So this is my thing about Wonder Boy is it's a tricky style to prepare for. And obviously it's a style that you're very good at. Someone would bring you in to help prepare you for in terms of that. So like Gilbert Burns has brought in Raymond Daniels. Actually, John McCarthy is the one who made that recommendation to him. But in a 6-week camp, can Raymond Daniels truly get you ready?
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot better than if you didn't have Raymond Daniels for sure. We talked about how difficult it is because you're dealing with different movement, you're dealing with different range, you're dealing with different attacks, a lot of lead leg kicks from a karate specialist, a lot of side kicks, a lot of round kicks, a lot of angle changes that could throw you off. I mean, look what Stephen Thompson did to Jorge Masvidal. It was a clinic. And then the same thing against Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal. You're not a typical striker. So, I think it's smart that Gilbert Burns did that. We don't know how the training sessions went. I would probably bet a lot of money that Raymond Daniels pieced the hell out of Gilbert Burns, and he was very frustrated throughout camp.
Yeah. Tyler mentioned to me a question we got to bring up. Over, under fights that go the distance. We got 12 fights.
Let's do it.
There's two. I got two numbers. Do we go 5.5 or 6.5?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Let's see it.
5.5.
Ah, you bastard. Yeah. I was hoping you'd say 6.5. I thought I'd be with an easy pick there. Ooh. Man. Under over 5.5. I am going to say over. I think we get 6.
I was counting down. 6 was the number I came to.
Yeah, that's why if you said 6.5, I was going to say under, but just slightly.
I just think there's some fights that you look at have got a high likelihood to go the distance. And of course, if you're making your prop bets on this card, those over 2.5 props out there. I mentioned about the under 1.5 for Tuivasa Hardy plus 150. I think that's one you got to look at. But like I look at the co-main event, I think it's got a good probability to go the distance. Aldana Kunitskaya have good probability. Condit Griffin. My eye. Akhmedov, Tavares, Zhumagulov, and Rivera.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a weird card because I'm like, man, there could be a lot of fights that go the distance. But also when you think that you have a beat on a card, they often surprise. And I think that you could be looking at fighters upping the ante a little bit, Jason. And the reason I say that is because it's a Conor McGregor card. There's a ton of eyeballs and pressure being a part of this card. But I don't know if you saw, they increased the bonuses to $75,000 for this card. So
that does get people motivated.
It does get people motivated. I mean, let me say, if they up the bonuses, boy, we bonus hunting. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody's going to go out there and try to put a stamp on their performances.
I'll just say this: if we got Pete into a fight tomorrow, all of a sudden said, Pete, 75,000 on the line for a knockout of the night bonus, Pete's going to be like, screw this, man. I'm going for it.
Oh yeah. It favors my style. And that's exactly what we're going to go for.
Yeah, that is, look, it motivates these fighters. It's clearly going to motivate them. And by the way, our producer, Tyler, brought up a great point in the YouTube chat. Herb Dean is the referee. Conor McGregor has said, he wants to make Dustin die tonight. Herb might let it happen.
Oof.
Herb's had, I'll tell you what, there was for a long time to me, Herb was the best referee in the game. He's had some bad calls over the last year.
100%. It's almost like you either stop a fight way too soon or way too late. There's nothing on point. It's almost like, what are you watching out there? Like, and then the one thing that's really difficult about judging and refereeing is they carry that burden from fight to fight. So if they make a bad call early on, that could end up affecting their calls going forward for the rest of the card. And you have seen that happen where, like, you know, they stopped the fight too late and they heard it from the crowd or they heard it from the commission. So now going forward, they're hopping on fighters and stopping them quickly as like makeup calls. So it's such a tricky dynamic, and it could definitely affect our lineups and affect your betting for sure.
Oh, I've always brought that up. When you have a bad scorecard earlier in the fight, if you're a fighter in the back, you're going, is that person scoring my fight?
Yep. I try not to pay attention when I'm in the back. I don't care who's scoring what. I don't, you know what I mean?
That's why you pay people to handle that stuff for you.
Well, yes, but you know what I mean? Like, as a fighter, you don't want these outside, you know, influences kind of affecting your mindset.
Who scores more on DraftKings, Thompson or Griffin?
Griffin.
It's Griffin to me as well. I mean, we talk about a strategy show, like, you know, at 8,500, let's just say you're putting Thompson in your lineup, and let's just say you're saying, you know what? I think the thing's going to decision. My goal is 85 to 90 points. You know, how do you get there?
You're going to need to – Thompson's got to avoid the big power shot, and he's also just got to light him up like a Christmas tree and work towards a finish. And I don't really foresee that happening because of his patient style. Any shot can put you down and work towards a finish, but I think that his patient style could lead to a decision. And I think that's a solid bet if you're looking for Thompson to win via decision. You mentioned it. It's a solid one. You know, I think that Max Griffin has more potential to explode given the takedowns and strong striking as well. And Carlos Condit being on an extreme rough patch, finding 2 back-to-back wins. I think that recency bias could make Max Griffin go a little bit overlooked. And I really like that for DFS lineups.
Brent asked, how many lineups do we have without the main event? That'd be a big fat 0 for me.
Big fat 0 for me too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just to me, you got to have the main event. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm not avoiding the main event one way or another.
Look, okay, you can't avoid the main event on DraftKings. FanDuel, I could see where you would avoid the main event, but yeah,
what's the price at on FanDuel?
20 and 19.
Yeah, I mean, over there, right? Like, that's essentially having Conor and Dustin at, let's say, 9,000 and 8,900. You know, then that's why, like, if they were priced like that, you could get away from it. But being at 8,100 each, there's no way I'm getting away from the main event.
Mentioned we got about a captain mode question over on DraftKings on who is the best captains out there. So if you don't want to go to a Sean O'Malley, who's 15,300, and I think you got to be looking at the main event. Poirier is actually only 10,200 over as a captain, where Connor's 10.5, kind of like that 10.2 price on Dustin.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Tuivasa 12,000 would be my other top one.
I'd probably you know, anytime you're rostering, let's say Tuivasa in that captain spot, it's a GPP type of fight, so you know that you could be looking at a low score. Whereas I think I have a little bit more confidence in Dustin Poirier to go out there and get it done than banking on a heavyweight MMA.
By the way, I think some folks may not realize this. Conor McGregor got bought out of his whiskey company.
Yes,
he made a ton of money. He made
a ton of money. I mean,
ton of money.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, for him to still want to compete, I think it's a matter of trying to stay relevant. And I also think it's a matter of hunger for competition. So you have to give props to him for that. You know, he's fighting one of the best fighters out there, and especially coming off a knockout loss. I think that if you wanted to go back in time when he captured the second belt and then had some solid rounds against Floyd Mayweather, perhaps that's when he should have stepped away from the sport. You know what I mean? But who knows? I'm not saying that he's done by any means. It's just you've done it all, man. What else is there to do?
It's that love of competition, man.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, look, you know this. Fighters just don't go out when they want to go out. It's like Chael Sonnen said. You go out looking up at the bright lights. Unfortunately, for most, everyone's not. George St. Pierre is a rarity. Khabib is a rarity in the sport.
Yeah. So there's a quote that I kind of live by as well: is if you stick around in the sport too long, you'll end up on a lot of people's highlight reels, and it's true. So you have to have good people around you that aren't yes men and can really cut through the BS and talk to you straight and say, hey, you know what I mean? Like, let's do something else. And you hate to see somebody go out there and continuously get beat. Like, let's use Cowboy Cerrone. Like, has not looked like Cowboy Cerrone in a very, very long time.
Oh, yeah. It's been a long time now. Of course, football season is right around the corner. I'm a month away from my first game. It's kind of crazy that preseason football is almost here. And fantasy football, of course, is right around the corner as well. You got to check out all the fantasy football content we have over at awesemo.com. We got plenty of free articles and videos from Lawfully and Matt to get you ready. Of course, be sure to check out and subscribe to the all-new Awesemo Fantasy Football and follow at Awesemo Fantasy on Twitter, as well as the Awesemo Fantasy Football Facebook page. It's right around the corner. We're using the same data and analysis that goes into our DFS product to go into season-long and best ball fantasy football teams. So be sure to check out the fantasy football coverage we have over at awesemo.com. We're under 10 minutes to go before we will reach lock. Get ready for UFC 264. We'll try to get in as many questions as possible. David says, since I won't be owned, does she have a path to win? She's going to keep the fight on the feet. I think, I don't mind her as kind of a punt play where you kind of realize that if she does win, you're probably looking at a 75, 85 type point score. But I don't see a finish coming, but she's probably fighting for a UFC job.
Yeah, I think she's fighting for a UFC job. And if she's able to keep the fight upright and, not get taken down, I think that she has a path to winning a decision. Her striking isn't bad. Her hands aren't bad. She could possibly win rounds and en route to a decision in the vicinity of 70 points or so. And if you end up having the other correct 5 fighters that give you 100 points or 95 plus, that maybe that pay down option is a solid fighter to target. But, whenever a fighter lacks upside, I go somewhat underweight. It's not like she's so cheap. She's cheap, but it's not like she's bottom of the barrel.
Who do you like more, Ryan Hall or Nico Price?
Oh, man. I'll say Nico Price, despite me pivoting to Ryan Hall. Nico Price, he's got power. He's got submissions. Ryan Hall really has just his jiu-jitsu and facing a undefeated prospect. But, I don't hate either one. I think they're two of the best GPP options out there.
Yeah. Let's see here. Quinn, I want to talk about some FanDuel options. So,
okay.
So when it comes to some of the underdogs, first off, I'm going to look at who do I believe is going to be able to stop takedowns. So I think you got to look at that. I do expect Omar Akhmedov will be going for takedowns. So Brad Tavares, who has always shown for the most part a pretty good takedown defense, I think that's someone you got to look at. Mm-hmm. Jessica I will probably have a stop takedown attempts from Jennifer Maia.
Great point.
Ryan Hall's going to go for takedowns. Carlos Condit, $10. If you think he can win by a decision, he's going to have to stop takedowns. The question is whether or not he can stop those takedowns. So that's kind of where I'm starting with FanDuel. Look, there's Gilbert Burns to me is a GPP play. If he wins, going to be optimal, especially at $13 over on FanDuel. Greg Hardy, $12 is a nice play, but that's a boom bust type play.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. And on FanDuel, target those fighters facing opponents that want to take them down. Jessica I is probably going to have to defend takedowns, and Brad Tavares is going to have to defend takedowns as well.
Yeah. Someone mentioned about some of the best refs. I think Mike Beltran's one of the better refs. Too bad the UFC won't let his beard out. They want it tucked inside his shirt.
Yeah, I like Beltran a lot. I also think Jason Herzog's the best ref in the game.
Yeah, he's a very good referee. Very good referee. I mean, come on, you got to praise your guy, Brian Miner. Man.
Brian Miner too.
You might be a little,
a little biased. That's what I'm saying.
A little biased.
Yeah. Brian's very good.
Yeah, very good. He's actually been getting some opportunities to do some judging in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Ryan Hall at captain, man, that would make you optimal, but I would not go there.
Oh boy, I don't know if I would do that. That's a little too risky for me.
Yeah.
How many low kicks do we see tonight? How many fouls do we see? We see at least 2.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
At least.
Hey, look, man. Hey, Connor tried to get the low fouls going right during the weigh-ins. Dana White took one right to the rib.
Look like Hasbullah. I don't know if you know who that kid is from Russia, but yes, he looked just like Hasbullah.
Look, I'm just saying the UFC should have made sure he's there tonight.
Oh, that would have been amazing. Have him there with Habib. That would have been great.
Hey, they really should get out there. My guy Kucherov.
Oh man.
No shirt, drinking. By the way, he got a Bud Light sponsorship deal.
Wow.
And he pulled, hey, I don't know if you saw this. He pulled the Habib line out. Number one bullshit.
I love it.
Of course, we appreciate everyone that's in here. If you want to fire off some quick questions, hit those up right now. Of course, be sure to give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe also right here on YouTube. Of course, coming up at 6:15 will be MLB Live Before Lock. Biggest upset of the night.
Ryan Hall.
Nico Price for me.
Okay.
By the way, I'll say this, live betting MMA is the way to go. You can really find a great lie.
100%.
Yeah, it's a tremendous way. Can you fade Connor and Poirier on FanDuel? I would say yes, you can.
Yes.
Jerome Rivera ask. That's
sneaky.
Yeah,
very sneaky.
Someone asking for an easy 3-leg parlay. Well, it starts off with Sean O'Malley. I would, if I was going to go a 3-person parlay, I would probably go Sean O'Malley, Max Griffin.
Yeah.
To Poirier.
Stop it. I wouldn't do that. I would go.
Be your next choice.
The final one, Sean O'Malley, Max Griffin, Dustin Poirier.
Thoughts on Brad Tavares in the MVP spot on FanDuel? I don't mind that play because he's going to stop takedowns.
It's going to be unique and it's going to be boosted because of the takedowns defended. It's pretty nice.
Condit or Akhmedov in a GPP. Oof.
So Akhmedov has good takedowns against a guy with great takedown defense, has power, but Tavares is pretty live. Akhmedov has questionable cardio. I probably want to go Akhmedov. I really wouldn't. I think Carlos Condit is always live to win a decision against a guy who's notorious for dropping split decisions in Max Griffin. So I'd probably go the Condit route.
Yeah, of course. Well, wish everyone good luck tonight with your DFS lineups. I made sure I got all my lineups in right before the show started. I had to make some small changes there. Someone says, is Griffin okay as MVP on FanDuel?
For sure.
I don't mind. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, this is awesome. This stream was great. We really appreciate you guys coming through. 800 people. You get us to 250 likes. Follow Jason and I on Twitter at Jason_Floyd, at Pete the Heat MMA. You guys are great, man. And I hope you guys win some money tonight.
Of course, we'll be back on Thursday for next week's fight night card, which is the Islam Makhachev versus Thiago Moses card. Islam Makhachev, who I don't think anyone in the top 5 in the UFC lightweight division wants to see standing across from them.
I know. I had a good parlay and I did it across two cards, and Yu Hao Zhang had to ruin it all.
No, he did not ruin it all.
Whatever. Whoever ruined it. Amadovsky. Give him the win. Give him the win.
Yeah, I'll mention this prop best that I do like tonight. McGregor wins round 1 plus 250. Poirier wins via submission plus 650. Thompson via decision plus 160. Under 1.5 Tuivasa Hardy plus 150. Aldana via decision plus 160. And a kind of a dark throw here. Ryan Hall via submission plus 450. I'm amazed it's that high.
That's ridiculous. I'm about to blow a circuit over here. That doesn't even make any sense.
Taporia, do not play jiu-jitsu, bro. Do not play jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Otherwise, that might end up really bad for you. Really bad for you. Really bad. But that is going to do it for Live Before Lock. Come up in 15 minutes. It'll be MLB Live Before Lock. EMAC and Gun Doctor getting you ready for tonight's MLB slate. So good luck, everyone, tonight. And look forward to watching these fights here. UFC 264 starting now. Stay tuned for MLB Live Before Lock. Good night, everybody.